Welcome to Bitcoin Not Crypto live stream. I'm Forrest Hodel. We do this every week at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hope to see you all here. And for the early comers to the show, we always like to reward you for showing up early, and you have a lot less competition to win some free sats. This is courtesy of the Bitcoin Well, and this is their Wishing Well rewards program. So when you play the Wishing Well, you throw 500 points in their well. What's going on here? It's not working. Let's refresh that. Let's try again, everybody. Basically, you can do this on your own if you sign up with my link in the description to join Bitcoin Well. They're the best exchange. They're the last exchange that you will use. Oh my God, we have some technical difficulties, everybody. Looks like the Wishing Well is not working today. Wow, that's disappointing. Anyway, we'll check back in a little bit later and see if it works again. We'll try it out later. And for now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the title of today's live stream. Meanwhile, I'll be checking over the chat as well. What's up, Naughty Vlogs? Good to see you. And I'll be answering any questions you might have. You can throw those in the chat. We'll do the Wishing Well maybe mid-show and at the end. Usually I do it at the beginning and the end. We'll do it mid-show, see if it works again. Yeah, anyway. So what are we talking about today? Well, I want to talk about how Bitcoin's price action is always going to basically test your conviction. If you haven't done the educational process of figuring out what this asset is, figuring out what its future potential is, and how historically how well it's done, regardless of the short-term volatility, you will probably get scared out. You will probably end up exchanging it back for something that will deteriorate over time and leave you with less purchasing power, which is not what you want to do. And there's a really good example of that in the last day. So yesterday, there was a great example of how this will test your short-term conviction. If you are looking at this chart price, you will see that yesterday it dropped down to 87. And these are 30-minute candles here that we're looking at. So in an hour and a half, it went from 89 to 87. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, basically 4 hours later, it was at 91. So this is likely a leverage flush out. So it's going to drop down to some key levels to liquidate some longs, and then immediately rockets up to liquidate shorts. But if you're looking at this day to day and you're worrying about the price, maybe you got in at around 90,000 and the immediate drop down to 87 is enough to scare you out of your position. And then it starts to rocket back up to 91 and a half. And you think, okay, well, that was a mistake I made. I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to buy in because this thing's going way higher. If you're focusing on this, if you're zoomed in this much, you're going to sell when it's the wrong time to sell. You're going to buy when it's the wrong time to buy, because immediately after there's this small consolidation period of low volume and we go back down to 89, right? So there's a lot of people here that are probably buying and selling at the wrong time and not zooming out and not seeing, if we go to the daily chart here, it becomes pretty obvious what the long-term trajectory, actually the weekly is even better. Of course, this is the saying, when in doubt, zoom out. The long-term trajectory is amazing of Bitcoin, right? So it's just these types of markets where you're not sure why they're trading sideways, why they came down. You're questioning. You begin to question possibly what is going on, because there's sort of narratives end up trying to fill the gap, and they try to explain, oh well, the yen carry trade is still unwinding. you know, this and that. There's liquidity issues, and Bitcoin is trades 24/7 and is hyper liquid. So people are just kind of scrambling to get to sell any asset, right? And they're going to sell Bitcoin. There's people that don't understand, right? There ends up being all these narratives around the short-term price action, but there's actually another narrative that you could focus on that is more in line with the long-term price action, which is that this is a scarce, desirable asset that the entire world needs as a store of value and as a permissionless, trust minimized asset of being able to send value to one another, right? The tool of money itself. That's what Bitcoin is. And over the long run, this is something that's going to appreciate in price because it becomes more and more scarce every single day, and more valuable in the eyes of people that begin to understand it, thanks to the network effect. People like myself talking, people like you in the chat likely are understanding it more, allocating more and more of your paychecks to it. And this is and telling other people about it, your friends and family. And this is a network effect that grows the value of this long term. The short term price action doesn't matter, but it does if you're zoomed in on it. It matters a lot if that's what you're focusing on, right? But it shouldn't be what you are focusing on if you want to build long-term wealth. If you're focused on the short term, you're focused on speculation, and likely you'll get wrecked. You know, you might make a couple good trades, but then your confidence goes up and your allocation size goes up in those trades, and you make a mistake because you're tired. You make a mistake because the world is incredibly unpredictable, and you lose the gains that you made. That is typically what happens with traders. So my kind of thesis here, you can kind of see that Bitcoin trades, right? You know, trades sideways for a long time before it makes a serious move. Even here, this could be argued that this is trading sideways here at this local top. Same here, and it moved down, then it trades sideways, moved up, right? So what we could see here is we've seen this move downwards. We could see a while here of trading sideways before we make a definitive move. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's basically what I'm thinking here. So I want to quickly give a little shout out, and before I start answering some questions and going through the chat, I want to give a quick shout out to everybody watching on Nostr. I stream through Zapstream. This gets published to Nostr, and I'm actually going to just share this on my Nostr account right now. It's just loading. There's a few people over there that actually zapped, and when you zap on Nostr, it's kind of like doing a super chat on YouTube. I will read your comment out. I will address your zap, and you can zap Bitcoin over the Lightning Network. The share function is not working. Something's going on here. Nothing seems to be working well for me. So Let's Fo Live zapped 21 sats. Oh my God, it looks like Zapstream has adapted to the B symbol being sats. I don't know about that. I don't know how I feel about that. Chef White zapped 69 sats and said, great job. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Nostr is something that I'm actually actively working on. I've created this open source project called Pleb Tools, and I have Nostr extension account login integrated into it. I built that out using AI. And I have some really big plans for accounts on there and zappable events for voting. That's going to be quite interesting. So lots of cool stuff going on with Nostr, in my opinion. Yeah, there's even a Nostr marketplace that's like eBay or like Amazon that I just found. I also want to make a page on Pleb Tools that is just helpful links to figure out like education about Nostr and links to all the really cool clients on Nostr. Yeah, because there's not just Twitter clones out there. There's all sorts of really cool stuff. All right, and if anybody else wants to, I mean, sending through the Nostr live stream is a great way to support the show, but you can also scan this QR code. This is a Lightning wallet as well. It's just another way to show your support, and I'll actually bring up that Lightning wallet right now. You can attach notes to these things, and you can, again, treat it like a super chat, except it's Bitcoin native. So appreciate it. And actually, last week, I didn't read this one out, but I got 120, 1,234 sats from Sketchy Trader. Said cheers, Sketchy Trader. Just what I talked about, being a sketchy trader. I appreciate the zap and the donation there to the live stream. Okay, so let's take a look at your comments. If you have any questions, now's the time to throw them in the chat and we'll get to them. What's up? Have you ever read or heard of the book Atlas Shrugged? Yeah, I've read Atlas Shrugged a while ago. That's Ayn Rand, sort of a libertarian fictional novel based in some, I suppose it, yeah. So I'm just trying to think because of when it was written. I guess it's some sort of like parallel world almost, but it relates to this you know, the world that we live in today, where it's about a railroad entrepreneur that is worried about nationalism taking over companies and things like that. It's a very interesting book. I actually found it quite a boring read. I'm probably going to get flack for saying that. I found it pretty boring, not super insightful, but probably because it's not, I think at the time of it coming out, it was hugely impactful because these kind of concepts weren't being talked about that much, and it's sort of theoretical, and also not necessarily theoretical, but like pointing at the downstream effects of nationalizing companies like this, and sort of the effects of socialism in that way to the public sector. That kind of stuff was already known to me through other avenues, so that what didn't feel so insightful from reading Atlas Shrugged, but nonetheless, I think a lot of people find a lot of value in that book. I'll drop my Strike username and you can send me 500 sats for the wishing well thing being down. Yeah, exactly. I have to take over for the wishing well here. That's funny. All right. What else we have? Bitcoin is long term, at least hold for 10 years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so hold it for 10 years, even 4 years. 4 years is a minimum, in my opinion. And then 10 years, of course, you're going to just be set on that. Like if you can hold for 10 years, you'll be totally fine, in my opinion. If MSTR is amplified Bitcoin, why not just hold it instead of BTC? It is not purely amplified Bitcoin. Amplified Bitcoin or leveraged Bitcoin might be looked at something more like a option. There's sort of additional risk profiles to leveraging Bitcoin in any way, or taking out some sort of loan and buying Bitcoin, or an ETF structure that has like a 2x leverage, like BitX, something like that. MSTR is its own beast, right? It's a company that is buying Bitcoin with the issuance of equity, with the issuance of preferred equity, not debt anymore. They do have debt on their balance sheet, but they are now issuing equity that pays a dividend that entices a different class of buyers. And they're using all of that to buy Bitcoin and now US dollars as well. Now, what's interesting about MSTR's price, and I think a large part of why it has declined a lot, is because of how liquid the options chain is, which is one of its features, but in a toppy market, a market where people are worried about the 4-year cycle and it being a self-fulfilling prophecy and seeing a decline of Bitcoin's price, there are a lot of large players that are long Bitcoin that are going to short MSTR in some way, whether that's puts or actually shorting. And the reason they're doing that is because of how liquid MSTR is compared to any other instrument that they can do that with. And that's probably creating a lot of downward pressure on MSTR's share price. So that's why I'm saying it's not just simply amplified Bitcoin. There's all these other dynamics that go into it that are going to change the price in relation to Bitcoin. As we've seen a massive compression, right? If it was simply amplified Bitcoin, there would be an MNAV at all times, but we've seen a compression of that MNAV based on so many additional factors that we could go into, but it's really not just simply amplified Bitcoin. Glad I haven't bought an MSTR leap call. I've just been dollar cost averaging into it right now. Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Like a leap is sort of a way to leverage your position, and you're going to see a lot more decline. If like there's different variables that go into the value of an option, right? There's the time variable, the volatility variable, the uh, with those, the calculation of how likely it is to be in the money or out of the money by the time of expiry, and a lot of those things can be negatively affected when the underlying can actually perform just fine. So you're getting involved with an instrument that is much more complicated than than just shares, right? Like you could think of shares as basically an option on the company that never expire is one way to thinking about it. Which, if you believe in the long-term thesis of Bitcoin and you think that MSTR will be able to remain solvent and continue to allocate more capital to Bitcoin over time without reducing without reducing Bitcoin per share, but actually increasing Bitcoin per share, then in all likelihoods, it is a good long-term bet, just like Bitcoin. But again, it has its own variables, and I think it fits in a portfolio to some degree. MSTU, MSTX, MSTY. MSTY should be avoided at all, basically in every single portfolio, unless you're like unable for some reason to pull the trigger and sell shares. That's what MSTY is basically doing for you. It's going to underperform the underlying, and it actually historically since its inception has underperformed just allocating the same amount to MSTR and selling the equivalent MSTR value as the dividend and return of capital that you get back from MSTY. So it is not a solid fund. No yield max fund is. In my opinion, MSTX and MSTU have been beaten up to hell because they're aiming at a 2x of the daily price change in MSTR. So there's the possibility of these things. If MSTR was to go down 50% in one day, that means that these funds would go to zero. They would go down 100%. So that's something just to be known. And I think in this recent downturn, MSTR is down, I don't know. I actually have no idea, like 40, 50 somewhat percent. And MSTU, MSTX is down 80 plus percent. So they might seem incredibly undervalued, but these are timing instruments. They should be treated similarly to options because they have a similar risk profile. They're not exactly the same, but they should be treated in that way of using them for trading instruments when you think that there's a bullish event that you're trying to take advantage of, and you're holding these for a very short term. That's what I would think personally. Yeah, you're welcome for clarifying the answer. Just going to check one more time. I'm going to try to bring up Bitcoin Well. Let me just do this on the side here. And I'm also going to check out Zapstream. Sin Diesel zapped a couple times here, 18 sats and 45. I love that. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for the zaps. And you also commented, MSTW via Roundhill, your opinion. So I have been slacking. I haven't found it as interesting to look into these sort of MSTR ETFs, income ones and stuff like that. So I don't have a ton of information, but let's maybe go over it together, which could be fun. MSTW Roundhill. So this is a weekly. Let's take a look here. Okay. So this is by Roundhill. MSTW seeks to pay weekly distributions to shareholders while targeting enhanced returns corresponding to 120% of MicroStrategy's weekly performance. That's pretty interesting. So distribution rate as of 12:05, so that's December 5th. So they've paid out 100% since inception of this. When was this inceptionized? I think that's the word, right? I actually don't think that's the word. Let's see. All right, this is interesting. We'll share this tab. So this is the performance here. So July is when they were formed. You can see massive decline in share price, probably a lot of return of capital as well. Share price is down 73%. Meanwhile, they've returned 100%. So you're up 25%. If if that is accurate, I don't know 100%. But you can also see here, while the fund had more capital and while the share price was higher, right? The underlying value was higher based on whatever they hold, which we haven't even gotten into yet at this point. They're giving 85 cents, 78, and it's going down as the share price of the stock goes down as well. So this looks to me similar to the other MSTR derived funds, right? They're obviously massively affected by the share price of MSTR. Um, this is probably some Leap poor man covered call or swaps or something like that to reflect the price. But this looks to me like it is in a similar trajectory as MSTY in the way where the share price will just get eroded. I don't know how much return of capital this fund does, but it'll likely just the share price will get eroded to a level where they will do reverse splits as MSTY did. So MSTY here, we can look, they did a reverse split right here and 5-1. So if you had 5 shares, you only have 1 share now, and the share price is $35 as opposed to what it was divided by 5 prior. So the dividend amount went all the way down to 13 cents, right? Much higher back in the day here with Misty when it first originated. I think they've also gone to weekly as well by the looks of it. Is that correct? Yeah, they have gone to weekly as well. So that could be times by 4 to some degree to reflect these larger payments that were monthly. But the reverse split is the strategy of these income funds, especially ones that do return of capital, because they're taking out the capital from the share price, returning it to you, and therefore they're left with less onward and onward. So they have to reverse split to increase the share price back to a level where it's reasonable and not going to go to zero. So let's take another look. Share this tab instead. Weekly distributions are also incredibly difficult to do. So I have a strategy where I hold MSTR shares and I sell weekly covered calls against them, and it's profitable. It's helped me hedge the downturn of MSTR, not to the level where it's been uh, super positive, because obviously MSTR share price has gone down so much, but I'm still able to extract some fiat value out of that, use it for living expenses or reinvest it and whatnot. So weekly distributions are typically really hard to do, and because of that, you're actually increasing the potential for something to go wrong. So if you sell short to harvest some sort of volatility here, to some degree, I'm not exactly sure again how this fund does that, but if you're doing that and MSTR share price rockets up, you're going to have to cover that, and that's going to be extractive for the capital under management as well. And then you're going to have to roll that out. But if you do it monthly, if you have monthly payments, you're able to weather the volatility a lot more, because your calls are likely going to be, or however you harvest the volatility, are going to be further out, and then there's the likelihood of the shares going back down, so you're not able to have a negative short-term call against you. So I think the reasoning behind a lot of these funds becoming weekly, or the attractiveness of the weekly, is because the sort of the retail out there that is buying this, right? There's only 73 million under management of this fund. The shareholders are really just looking at an extractive fund here, where they can juice some sort of maybe dividend portfolio they can increase the yield on that, knowing, or hopefully knowing full well, that the share price is going to evaporate, basically trend to zero forever as they reverse split this. But knowing that it's funding their income portfolio or juicing up the percentage that they're getting. Yeah, so it looks like their top holdings here are calls. So in the money calls for expiring in a little while here. 83% of that. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's like if you're not going to do this yourself, if you're not going to be selling covered calls on shares, then you're owning some derivative that is doing calls against it, long dated, like poor man's covered call, like Misty's doing, or some sort of credit swap type thing. And you're actually not really supporting the business underneath. You're not holding the long term vision of the business, and it's an extractive ETF for fiat income. That might fit your portfolio, but you should know that those things are going to go to next to zero, I would say. I believe August. Oh yeah, since it was inception. All right. Good afternoon, VHF. Good to see you. Can you send a link to your Nostr account? Yes, I can. I'll send a Primal link, and then I'll send my NPub as well. And if you go on Primal right now, I'm actually live, and I'm competing against Simply Bitcoin. Simply Bitcoin has 2 viewers. Bitcoin Not Crypto has 5 viewers. So shout out to the 5 viewers. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. I'll actually share, let's see, force total. Just share the Primal link. Oop. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to share my NPub as well if anybody wants to follow me on Nostr. I'm giga bullish on Nostr these days. I didn't re-up on my X account. I don't know. X is weird. It's like it's the freedom of speech platform, but it's definitely not the freedom of reach. They different tiers of payment will create more reply engagement or something like that, it said. And it's just like, okay, well, how freedom of speech are you where you're literally allowing more reach by paying more? It doesn't really make any sense to me. What's up, brother? Bitcoin a nurse. What's up, brother? Glad to see the live stream today. Hey, what's up? Van City Adventure. Good morning. Hello. Nice to see you in the chat. So yeah, we don't have any more comments. Again, this is a weekly live stream that I do, and it's mostly answering questions. So if you guys do have any questions, now's the time. And if you want, I can go into a little bit more. I'm just going to try Bitcoin Well again. I'm hoping that I can get some people some free sats. I don't know what's going on with Bitcoin Well. You know what? I'm going to try a different browser. Bear with me. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, throw them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. I got lots of really great videos coming out. I actually just edited one. It's been rendering as we speak, and it's really, really cool. It's a presentation that I did at my local Bitcoin meetup here in Bitcoin Valley about the Block Explorer. I think the Block Explorer is something that people new to Bitcoin probably go to and become overwhelmed with, but I think it's actually incredibly impactful for new people to visually have a way to look at Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is so sort of theoretical and so mental, and just this digital kind of thing. Again, the Block Explorer is digital too, but the way our brains work is if we have the ability to create an image of something, we hold space in our brains differently than if so if you speak something into existence, it's going to actually exist in your brain differently than if you just thought it, right? Is one way to look at that. Yeah, it's not working on Chrome either, the Bitcoin Well. So I think the Block Explorer is incredibly useful to newcomers. So I have a video coming out soon on that. Just finished editing it. It'll probably be this Wednesday, probably it'll be out. Yeah. All right. All the social platforms are rigged, including X. They definitely are. And I kind of feel like they're rigged, and they ultimately are designed in a way to create to promote the most engaging kind of content, because the incentive for them is to have people stay on their platforms for longer. So that in itself is sort of transparent and open, but the sort of pay to play that is definitely happening on X is very rigged. I think even like YouTube is less rigged than that, personally. I think it has its own problems, but just the blatant pay to play with X is crazy to me. Not a fan. Naughty Vlogs on I don't have the comments. For some reason, I'm not getting the comments on Zapstream. I have to go over to Zapstream to see them. Naughty Vlogs is on there. What's up? I just had to set up an account on Primo because I couldn't find you on Damus. Interesting. Yeah, I think Damus has the ability to be streamed on. So yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Hello all, Tommy Twister. I can rarely join during the week, but I am in Montreal for the week, so here for the show. Nice. Cool. Yeah, Montreal. Great city. Fun place. Enjoy. What are your thoughts on the CoinKite tap signer? I think it has its place. It has its ease of use for somebody that is not very technical. They're cool devices, but I think actually this is something that I ran into with a client of mine, an issue where they had purchased a cold card and 2 tap signers as the sort of CoinKite store promotes as a really simple multisig. And indeed it is a really simple multisig, except that you have to use a mobile app to set it up. You have to use Nunchuck. You're not going to be able to do this with Sparrow, which also has the ability to create a multisig, unless you have an NFC reader that connects to your computer. So it's sort of limiting you to that device. Now, the other thing too is multisig is supposed to be designed for, the most secure, most sort of long-term, like a lot of people will set up a multisig and sort of set it as a set and forget it and have it for 10, 20 plus years. Now, the problem with that is the tap signer has limited ability to last that long, right? It has some sort of memory within there. I believe they also have sealed batteries, and those are probably going to last like 5-7 years. So, and there's no ability to recover the private key, and there's no ability to generate the private key without creating a software wallet out of that tap signer. So you have no ability to have like when you have a seed phrase, you can put that in steel or titanium and have it for 100 years. So you could set up a multisig, but you would need at least 2 hardware devices that generate seed phrases, and you could put those into a form factor that's going to last hundreds of years. And ultimately, if the flash memory on your cold card and your hardware devices die, the battery on the tap signer degrades to 0, you still have 2 keys that you've stored, on titanium and kept somewhere, and you can sign, or you can add those back into new hardware wallets and sign a transaction to move your multisig over to a new setup or whatever. So you have the ability to have a multisig last generations that way. So if you have one cold card that's generated a seed phrase and you have 2 tap signers, you're now subjected to the failure of those tap signers, and you don't have the ability to recover those keys. So it creates a temporary multisig that works really easily because you could use both your tap signers on Nunchuck, and you don't even need to sign into your cold card and put in your passphrase and scan a QR code or anything like that. You just use 2 tap signers, boom, boom, and you sign a multisig transaction. Really, really simple, really easy. But are you going to let it sit there for 5 years and risk both of those tap signers degrading? I don't know. To me, that seems risky. It doesn't seem like a foolproof long-term plan. It seems like sort of a midterm plan. You should probably be re-upping and adjusting your multisig as we go along in time anyway. So is it really that big of a problem? Maybe not. But when you're looking at the security of your Bitcoin, you want to think through every single possible vulnerability, and using tap signers in a multisig has that vulnerability of not being able to have a seed phrase. Would you move to El Salvador? I've never been to El Salvador. I went to Nicaragua back in like 2013 for a big surf trip. Me and my wife, now girlfriend at the time, hiked volcanoes, went surfing, went to a bunch of different cities and towns, and it was cool. It was really hot. It was awesome, but I've never been to El Salvador, so I definitely would not move anywhere that I've never been. And I think it's probably better. I think it's like, well, the way I look at countries is there's countries that are sort of stagnant, and I would say that's even declining. I think being stagnant is not a good thing, but there's countries that are definitely declining in their sort of standing in the globe relative to other countries, and there's countries that are on the uptick, right? I think El Salvador is likely on the uptick, but I don't love every single thing that's going on in El Salvador. I think that relying so much on one figure to sort of control and create peace within the country is a really vulnerable position that could be disrupted really easily. And if it does get disrupted, then it becomes really unstable. I think we have more relative stability, but we are declining here in Canada. So, there's no, what I've realized really is there's no perfect piece of property and there's no perfect country to live in. There's there's no perfect security situation for your Bitcoin. There's always trade-offs. So I see some trade-offs in as an outsider looking in and actually not having visited or experienced the culture or really any reality of today, but looking at potential futures of that country, I see that there are some questions that come up to me. But I look around the world, I don't know where else I would live either. So I'm sort of just in Canada because of convenience, family, difficulty of uh, moving and all that stuff. So for now, that's what it is. And maybe in the future there'll be a place that draws me, a place that I travel to visit and see that I would move to. I would definitely be open to moving somewhere else than Canada. I saw Tap Signer on their site. Is it just more elite version of Tangem? It is Bitcoin only. It is open source, and you have to use it with a companion app that it doesn't have. So Tangem sort of has that limited ability. They have open source software as well, but it's very difficult to compile from the code that they've given out. So there's some closed source elements to it as well, which creates a massive vulnerability for any Tangem users. I think Sin, actually, you were in that talk on Maple where somebody was bringing that up. So yeah, Tap Signer is similar in the way where it's sort of a chip with a NFC reader style. But it's more Bitcoin focused, and I would say better, but again, probably not the solution for anybody that has any sort of technical ability. Should step out of the realm of these limited options. There's a lot of limitations with things like Tangem and Tap Signer. Naughty Blogs. Leith is in the chat, actually, over on Zapstream. Zap me 1,000 sats. Wow, amazing. I appreciate that. That's going to go a long way to basically I've just been all your guys' sats I've been giving back to Zapstream because it costs sats to stream on there. So appreciate that. That goes a long way. 2.5 sats per minute. So that 1,000 sats is going to go a long way. Appreciate it, Letha. Hi Forest, Sin, and Naughty, they say. And Sin says, Hola, Letha. Appreciate it. Okay. I also watched a debate between Peter Schiff and CZ. I can't remember what YouTube channel I watched it on, but Schiff was talking about tokenized gold. I commented, we already tried. Yeah, tokenized gold is an old story. We tokenized it with paper, and it just led to eventually not having actual claim over any real gold. It's led to the fiat system that we have now, which is a disaster. The same thing would happen with digital tokenization of gold. It's an idiotic idea. And it is there's actually this post by this like crypto influencer that was like, you can tokenize a diamond, and what's amazing about that is if that diamond gets stolen or lost or destroyed, you actually still have the token of it, and it's just as valuable. And it's like, holy shit, the mental gymnastics that has to happen for you to think that that's reality is insane. So what's beautiful about Bitcoin, of course, is that there's no claim to anything. It is what it is. There's no token. It's not a tokenization of anything. It just is the Bitcoin itself, which is has a cost of production around it, and it has all of these parameters and sort of values that you ascribe to it, and that we all sort of believe in, that creates an exchange rate, which ultimately is very interesting, considering we're getting away from fiat currency that is built solely on belief. However, there is also still a belief that needs to happen about the value of Bitcoin, but it's based on the understanding of everything that goes into it, and if you value those things or not. But ultimately, like most things in the world, it ends up being about belief at a certain point. Hey, Forrest, just started mining on Ocean Pool and found your videos very helpful. Keep it up. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I've helped inspire a few people to be able to mine their own templates using Datum and Ocean. That's great. Appreciate that comment. Nicaragua is rough, but I lived in Costa Rica, and everyone in Costa Rica was very racist with Nicaragua. Kind of funny, but they would always call the Americans racist. Yeah, no, Nicaragua was dope. When I was there, it was sort of like in between civil wars. So it was very peaceful, very awesome, very friendly, very cheap, very beautiful. It was great. I loved it. Do you suggest only purchasing non-KYC Bitcoin at this point due to the threat of unknown taxation rules in Canada in the coming years? No, I think that there's value to be had by having KYC and non-KYC Bitcoin. And I think that you should probably build a stack of both. Maybe if your amount of KYC Bitcoin is at the level where you want it to be and your non-KYC is lacking, then you could look into some options of, peer-to-peer, whether that's hodl, whether that's at a Bitcoin meetup, somebody looking to upgrade their life and need some fiat. But I think there's value to both. And I think there's a tail risk of some sort of attempt to tax Bitcoin. I think that would be an incredibly difficult thing to do. I think it would be pretty unpopular as well. And I think that there's other easier taxation routes that they'll go before they can try to tax people for their Bitcoin holdings. If Bitcoin is self-custody, pretty hard to take from somebody. Not impossible, but pretty difficult. Nicaragua has a large American influence in the language of the country's English, so maybe the Costa Ricans just don't like America. And maybe they're negative towards Nicaraguans because they folded to USA. Forrest, did you hear about that dude in New York who just got 5 years for creating a non-KYC crypto wallet? Are you talking about the Samourai developers? Because that's not really a non-KYC crypto wallet. That's a CoinJoin implementation. But yeah, I would have to know more about that because no, I have not. Also, just received 1,000 sats on Koinos. Keep up the great work, TBN. Appreciate it, TBN. Samourai wallet, yeah. So yeah, Samourai wallet is a CoinJoin mixer, and yeah, it's completely unfair what happened to them. They basically got sentenced for writing open source software code. Now, I would say I'm not trying to defend the decision because I think it's completely unfair. But unfortunately, I think the devs didn't do themselves much justice. They basically talked about how their service was money laundering, had the ability to do money laundering. They posted in some forums and stuff with that, publicly. So I think that unfortunately, they some of the other things that they did to promote the wallet was questionable and put themselves in a really bad light. I think it's also completely incorrect that they put this person in jail, that they're going to sentence this person. I think it's crazy. And it's unfortunate. And it's basically an attack on open source software when it really comes down to it. Like, yeah. And so the thing about open source software that is so powerful is that once it's released, it can't be stopped. And that's the case for Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin could have been a completely privatized project, a closed source project, and it would not be what it is today. It would have failed. It 100% would have failed because no one would be able to trust the code and no one would be able to trust anything around it. And it's the reason Bitcoin works is because you don't have to trust it, right? Trust becomes a secondary thought. It becomes a trust minimized system. So open source code is, in my estimation, what I've begun to believe is that it is an incredible revolution to create open source software, and it's a relatively selfless thing to do, mostly because you can get paid a lot of money and to do closed source software for somebody else, and it's a lot of work. So to create open source software, you are essentially attacking the closed source system that you're developing in. By creating open source Bitcoin protocols, you are attacking the fiat system. So it's the code writers are the warriors of the digital revolution in my eyes, and I don't think it should be understated. So this is essentially a warrior, whether they presented themselves well, whether they did everything they could or couldn't to protect themselves. This is somebody on the side of open source software that has been taken down, hindered, handicapped in some way. Whether you fully believe their project was amazing, the be all end all of coin joins, which I don't think it was. I think it had its limitations, its problems, but this is a bad situation for the future of open source projects. So there's probably going to be people that work in this field that are going to remain completely anonymous to do so. And there's been anonymous developers on Bitcoin, obviously Satoshi being the most famous. And there's sort of a reason for that being anonymous or pseudonymous. And I think this creates more likelihood that that's going to happen, for people to be pseudonymous. And in fact, like I've thought about projects that I want to do that are a little bit more, have a little bit more potential for disruption than the Pleb Tools open source project that I'm doing. And I'm like, I don't think I want to have my name attached to it. So yeah, we'll see. You'll never know. You'll never know if it's me coding it or not. Appreciate Carlin, the one gifted. Shout out for the one gifted. Appreciate that. And we're going to check up on Coinos again, see if anybody else has sent some sats. Looks like no new sats. That's all right. We're going to get to some questions here. The Ved stormed his house and had several red dots. That's crazy. It sucks also because now the Samourai case will set a judicial precedence regarding the attack against private custody. Yeah, it's possible. And there's been a few other attempts at some attacks on private custody, like there's this bill about having one Bitcoin address, which is insane. That's not even the way Bitcoin's built to work. You're supposed to never reuse addresses. So that's a direct attack as well. I think that Bitcoin is at this really interesting space where we are seeing mass adoption by institutions that have a real vetted interest in the success of this project. But there's also the political class, the Tim Waltz class that want to control it, that want to limit people's freedoms. And these classes are coming to a head because I think the financial class that wants to financially benefit from it, right? Like BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF is their most profitable product. And it will be nothing if the thesis of Bitcoin is destroyed by government overreach. Now, is it possible for governments to actually destroy the thesis? That's another question to have, and I think likely not, because of the way that it's built. You can still interact with it, delink your coins through things like open source software like coin joins. Like the Samourai dev is going to jail, but Samourai still exists. It's just ran by a different server, and it's run by somebody anonymously. Like they cannot stop. Again, they cannot stop open source software once it's running. They can hinder it. They can try, but it becomes a fight, right? And it's a losing fight because the code is out there. The code is being spread. I can download the code. You can download the code. We now have copies of it. It cannot be taken from so many computers all at once. What are your must-have wallets? Sparrow on desktop, what on mobile? So these would be wallet companions, or I call them wallet visualizers, and then signing devices. So the signing devices are the hardware wallets that sign transactions offline, and then you have a wallet visualizer that you can have a watch-only wallet on, and you can create transactions and you can broadcast it to the Bitcoin network. That's what Sparrow does on desktop. On mobile, Nunchuck is my favorite. Bull Bitcoin's wallet is becoming sort of a secondary favorite to me. I think they're doing some great stuff there, but I love Nunchuck. Nunchuck is awesome for mobile. Also, Cove wallet is good. I've heard it's good. I don't have Apple. I have a Graphene Android phone. So once it's on Android, I'm excited to see what it looks like because it looks really great. More people will use Bitcoin Well ATMs and no KYC, even paying the 4% fee. Yeah, exactly. Bitcoin Well, that's another reason I'm so supportive of them. Like, so there has been a little bit of retaliation, a little bit of challenge, I would say, in America for Bitcoin Well. There's a lot more KYC that's required for them as a company. But in Canada here, we have their ATM network that is incredibly powerful. And they have a cash voucher system that basically gets, I believe, all in fees and spread and everything, it becomes around 6 or 7%, which is half of the next best ATM out there, which will be like 15% fees and spread. So really incredible way of getting no KYC Bitcoin, in my opinion, which is, again, why I'm such a big supporter of them. All right. What I'm not a supporter of is their reward points wishing well not working right now. I'm just refreshing the page and hitting it. It's just not working. So no free Bitcoin today, everybody, unfortunately. The crazy thing is code is a programming language and should be protected by the First Amendment in the US because language is speech. And I agree. I agree with this. And I think that, if there was some sort of ruling in this Samourai case of, well, they promoted it to money launderers or criminals and they're getting a charge for that, then I could see that, right? I can understand that. But the fact that it's basically from creating the tool that then is being used by people that just want digital privacy and some subsection of people trying to delink for criminal reasons their Bitcoin, to me, that makes no sense because, again, all they did there was write code, which is a programming language and should be and is actually protected in the First Amendment as speech. So what is going on with this case? It's really, really crazy. And I'm not super deep in on it. I don't really know that much about it. So there's probably some things I'm missing there, some nuance, but to me, it does not seem like a good thing. 369 sats from Ballsy Golf. Nice. Appreciate it. So we are 53 minutes in. I can't do the Bitcoin wishing well. That really sucks. I accidentally just almost refreshed my StreamYard page. If you guys have any final questions, now would be the time, as I'm going to hop off pretty soon here. I actually got 4 client calls today. I'm going to be pretty busy, so I got to get ready for those, helping some people do some really, really great stuff with Bitcoin. That's something that I offer as well. Link in the description of that, or pathtobitcoin.xyz is my website that you can book a one-on-one session with me, and I can help you go over a bunch of different stuff with Bitcoin. And I actually accept Bitcoin for payment. You can book a session with me. Also, I've started posting blogs, which are mostly sort of a a rebuild of some videos that I've done. But if you prefer reading stuff, and I go into sort of bullet point issues on here, you can check out my blogs on here, and you can join the newsletter, which you can actually sign up for. And I plan to do some giveaways on there eventually, which will be for the Stampseed kit, basically all the things that I promote at the end of my video. Stampseed kit, the cold card. I plan on doing free giveaways of all those things, and it will be to people that sign up for the newsletter. I haven't really promoted it much, so that will happen later. Once I promote it, then I'll start doing the giveaways. But for now, you can check out the blogs on there. Really great stuff, if I do say so myself. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm going to leave it now, and we're going to see you guys on the recorded videos Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'll see you on Maple Bitcoin's channel. We are still posting on our own channels as well. So Friday you'll see me here, but I recommend checking out the Maple Bitcoin channel for that. And January, New Year, we will be posting only on the Maple Bitcoin for the Friday show. So definitely tune in. Make sure to check out that channel there. Thanks for everybody that tuned in to the live show today. Thanks for hopping over to Nostr and watching on there, keeping the Nostr protocol active and alive. Thanks for the zaps, and appreciate you guys. Goodbye.